Yuji versus Choso, man, was so good. They outdid. I can't even talk because of how great it was. They truly outdid themselves. I kind of want to go over a couple of different things in the fight that I noticed that I had to say, and then I will end stream and we all can enjoy the rest of our Saturdays. Yuji versus Choso, even from the very beginning, was such an amazing fight. The way that they did piercing blood, the way that they did blood manipulation and Choso's version of it as a whole might have been one of the coolest things I've seen in my entire life. The way that blood manipulation essentially just goes off of the blood that Choso summons, which he can conjure just a torrent and wave of blood. He throws it for projectile attacks, using it for piercing blood, slicing exorcism, or whatever. He completely unleashed a torrent wave of blood against Yuji, threw him against the wall and splattered him completely, and then he took his hand back and just ripped all of that blood right from Yuji. And the way that it was stuck on him, and it was like pulling off of his skin, which you knew that shit hurt, right? I loved that Choso doesn't just conjure up blood everywhere. Like, he's consistently just like summoning a wave of blood and then using that wave of blood as much as he can, making sure to not waste a single drop of it. Even though Choso does have unlimited blood, I love the way that he makes use of the blood, and he's not just throwing blood everywhere. It gets used and then it never gets used again. There's just blood, leaving like a bloody mess everywhere he fights, you know? He's literally using every inch of it. The way that they animated piercing blood from like the POV where he was like shooting the laser beam, and you got like that Call of Duty like as he was like aiming at Yuji and Yuji was running away. Whoever storyboard directed that, I want to give you an award. I want to come to your doorstep, meet your family, and tell them that everything that you do in life was a success, because holy shit, that was so cool. Such a great addition. Everything they did to add to Choso's ability and the way that everything looks animated, I particularly loved. I loved that they added that whole extra segment of Yuji kind of like scrapping with Choso and trying to knock the orb of blood that he was forming out of his hand, and then he takes that blood, brings it all up, and then drops like blood icicles on my man. The way that they were doing things was super cool. My only complaint in the beginning portion of the fight, and it's such a small dumb nitpick, was that there's a manga panel in the Yuji vs Choso fight. They kind of cut it out and just had Choso fire off an uncompressed enough attack of piercing blood, and Yuji just gets sent flying back. We literally don't even see it. They clearly cut corners where they could in this episode because of how much love and appreciation was put into the fight scenes, which I'm not mad about. We kind of saw it where like Choso, like Yuji looks up after dodging and Choso's making the piercing blood. Yuji goes, oh shit. But then Choso fakes Yuji out and kind of like jumps in to Yuji's range and just starts fucking popping him, which I was upset that they left out, but it kind of moves more into the aspect that Choso really is this inexperienced fighter, which I have to tell you, but even so, I'm sorry, I completely missed what I was saying. Even so, I think they did a bad job of making Choso look like an inexperienced fighter, because he was rocking Yuji pretty much this whole hand-to-hand fight. Like, I'm watching this fight and I'm like, damn, I would have thought Yuji did a little bit better. The way that they did Choso running into the bathroom, the whole water scene, I loved every minute of it. They did the raid reference perfectly. I think one of the best things that they did of how they changed some of the ways the fight did, because they didn't do Yuji running into the bathroom door, locking it, and then drop kicking it into Choso. They completely redid it, but it was a way that I was completely welcomed about it. I was not mad at all. Choso like sent Yuji flying through, or Yuji went bursting through all the different stalls. They used every aspect of the bathroom in such great fight choreography. The Sakuga moments were really good, of Yuji and Choso just throwing hands back and forth. The way they explained how Choso wasn't able to use the blood manipulation in the water. By the way, Supernova I thought was super cool too. I was always super curious how Supernova was really meant to look, because they kind of explained it. It's very similar to a shotgun buckshot, right? Where it's just like a big boom and you get hit with all the different pellets at like high velocity. So I think they did a really good job of that as well. And for anyone that talks shit on the OST of Jujutsu Kaisen, they're so f***ing bad and wrong people. Just bad and wrong people. Because the music of when Yuji gets hit with Supernova and he's like getting fucking boom, boom, boom. And then Choso fucking takes that blood and makes the knife and stabs it in Yuji. And you hear Yuji go like, make that like, ah, he makes that like sound. Like they did it so fucking well. And then he fucking kicks the shit out of Choso with the stabbed legs. I would have wished they kept the Choso style where he's like, damn, he really just fucking hit me with the legs I just stabbed. Because Yuji is the GOAT. And that's one thing I don't think really translated well in this fight, is Yuji really was against all odds in this fight. Like Choso was clearly more powerful than Yuji in this moment, and Yuji really stepped it up and met Choso at every level, regardless of being at a disadvantage, clearly with blood manipulation. Thankfully, Mechamaru helped him, whether you want to say that's really what added him to equal ground with Choso, and he would have lost if they stayed outside of the bathroom, because Yuji clearly didn't understand what even happened with the blood manipulation in water either. But either way, one thing that I will never think is not cool is when Choso does stack flowing red scale and he gets the arms with the blood completely surrounding them just to amp his physical stats. I love the line where Choso risks experiencing spontaneous thrombosis, which if you're not familiar, because I saw a lot of people don't know what thrombosis is, it's basically blood clots, but like severe ones where you get on the inside, where basically Choso was risking completely like stopping all blood flow in his body because the blood inside of his veins would get so hardened that no blood would flow at all, and like his body would just stop filtering blood and his heart would just like be unable to pump blood through his body, essentially, because he's hardening basically every vessel of blood in his body. He's risking that his body just goes into thrombosis and he just dies, which I love that like the narration is like Choso deemed that the risk of spontaneous thrombosis and dying from that was less risky than Yuji Itadori at this point, because it proves that Yuji really did step up that ball game. I love when Choso pierces Yuji with the blood meteorite in the liver, and Choso goes to like finish the assault, and Yuji fucking steps down, stands his fucking ground, and Choso backs up, and he's like, whoa, this guy's still got some fucking fight in him. And Yuji, the whole fucking Yuji, like, I know my role. I don't need to be the one to save Gojo Sensei. I've got people that can do it for me. I just need to fucking make a, hey, China Doll, first of all, thank you for the gifted member. I appreciate that. The whole, I think the manga panel does it a little more justice, where it's like, because it harks back, right, to Yuji fighting the finger bearer. When Yuji faces death against the finger bearer, Yuji is scared shitless, and he can't even think straight. Yuji's facing death for the first time, and he starts regretting everything he's ever done. He's like, I made a mistake. I should not be here being a sorcerer. Why did I think this was a good idea? I literally have been a sorcerer for a couple days. I'm fighting this insane curse spirit. All my friends are essentially, as far as I know, dead, and I'm going to die. I lost an arm already. This is terrible. And he like starts being super scared, and in that last second he turns into negative energy and faces his death like a f***ing OG character, like a man, the myth, the legend himself is what I mean. And he doesn't die because Sukuna shows up, right? Like Megami gives him the signal and Sukuna shows up at the last second and helps him. Whereas in this one, he doesn't doubt himself for a single moment. He starts to go, I'm gonna die. My liver is pierced. Something's broken and I'm worried. But then he stomps on the ground and he goes, no, I know my role. And like in the manga, it shows Yuji in that moment took all of his fear, all of his paranoid thoughts of dying and turned it into cursed energy to fight Choso. And I love that because, again, it's such a subtle harking back to the very beginning of the series. That's what I love, for sure. Yuji then goes all out against Choso in the final stand. Choso uses the Blood Blade, which I thought was really fucking cool, and sincerely saying that I'm sorry, I was reading a text message and I got completely sidetracked, but they couldn't have done a better job in my honest opinion. And I love completely agreeing with what Boku no Color said, where they did the soundtrack reference, where they did the no lyrics of part of Remembrance in the background, or Remember. Just like they did in Esso versus Kachizu's battle, where they actually had the double Black Flash and won. They harked back to that as well, where they did the fucking AMV, like bump, 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 bump. And then literally Yuji hits Choso and he goes, "What was that reaction?" And then Choso goes, "Bam," and Yuji up and takes him out. They almost made it seem like Choso literally took his fucking arm off, the way they did that. That being said, guys, I can't glaze this fight enough. I think they did an absolutely stellar job with it. I think the animation was on point. I think all the added segments were awesome. I know a lot of people don't agree. I think the POV piercing blood was super cool. And ultimately, I love that they just dedicated the entire episode to this fight. Rightfully so. The Choso FPS segment looked horrible to me. That's crazy. I thought it was super cool.